Okay. Yesterday we talked about all the administrative things that should make the class run smoothly, as long as we all do the right thing that way. And then we talked about developmental theory. And does anybody remember the name of the man that is given credit or that we associate with the idea of developmental theory? Or I asked that question the wrong way. Each of you try to remember the name of the man that we associate with developmental theory. Okay? Now, what would we assume his nationality is? Trick question, wasn't it? I just said we figured we might as well ask that since we all laughed about the way I was trying to say his name, right? You didn't laugh? You're supposed to laugh. Jean. Right? Jean? Jean. It's Jean. Jean the man. From probably? France. Okay, good. So, Piaget. So, and we had the sensory motor stage, birth to infancy, birth to, who knows, maybe 2 years old, something like that. Pre-operational stage, 2 to 7 or 8, pre-elementary. And when we say operation there, we're mostly thinking of mental operations. This is cognitive or mental development. Okay? So we're not saying that they don't have dexterity. It's before they can do things, pour water from one cup to another. It's not those type of operations. They're mental operations. And so pre-operation was because their mentality is not non-logical and not reversible. Remember that? And then concrete operational, elementary and early adolescence was the idea of thinking in concrete terms. When you say door or knock, that's what they're thinking of. You might think of somebody who's learning English as a second language often thinks in concrete terms. Okay? Like when the business class teacher says, when you have a balance or when there's a negative, you just fork it over. And the student says, fork it over? What does that mean? How do you fork over money? So anyway, so that's concrete. That's the idea of concrete operations. And then the formal stage is being able to think abstractly, analyze, think about things without having to see them or actually picture them. I mean, you can't really. How would you draw a picture of hope? Right? You could draw something, but it's that's more formal operational thinking. Okay, so that's our developmental theory. Today, I want to talk about taxonomies. And as we left, some of you might have already been gone, ensemble members or something. I said, let's think about what is a taxonomy. When I say a taxonomy, what is a taxonomy? Dave, could you flip that thing around so I can see whether I'm going off screen or not? I'm feeling walkative, so I don't. I want to make sure that I don't disappear for too long. So, taxonomy. What is a taxonomy? I think I said that normally, my students remember taxonomy when they think about biology. So someone tell me what they think a taxonomy is or give me an example of a taxonomy. Let me rephrase that question. Everybody think of a definition or an example of a taxonomy. Okay? At least the look on your face is a little different. Someone's like, well, I don't know the answer to that, so I'm not thinking. Now it's like, I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Sarah, what's the taxonomy?
Classification of something, so maybe species if you think of biology.
In biology, we think of species. That's the most common. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I still remember that. I review it once a year when I give this lecture. But not before, just in the lecture. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. It's a classification system. Who gave us kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species? Okay. Are you a botanist? Or no, are you a biologist?
I liked it.
You liked it? So who was it?
Carlos Linnaeus.
That's right. You remember that name? Carlos Linnaeus? Okay. How many learned about this in Biological Science Survey? No? When I was in Biological Science Survey, we learned about kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Mrs. Wright is taking it easy on you guys. Creation science.
Yeah, I think we did.
Creation science.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Creation science. For us, Biological Science Survey was 2 semesters. First semester, we learned about evolution and creation, and second semester, we learned about abortion. Okay. We just kind of tried to give it a better name. And so, we need to move along. Classification system. Can you classify things beside animals, living creatures? Yeah. Can anybody think of some other taxonomy or classification? Something that you're familiar with, or no? What do you think? Plants? Is there? I'm sure there is. Do they have the same order? Is there a family of plants and kingdoms of plants? I don't know. But I'm sure there's some taxonomy for plants. Can you think of another one? Anybody?
This might be like a far stretch, but maybe even in history because they have a classification of like different time periods.
Time periods? Maybe. If you wanted to classify events or something like that, sure. What? Go ahead.
Oh, I just think of like bugs. We could classify for bug collection.
Yeah, and they fit into a certain kingdom. So something beside kingdom, phylum, class, order. How about a library? Do you think a library there's a taxonomy of where a book fits in a library? We call it a classification system, right? Dewey Decimal System or library calendar system. So there's that. But anytime we get into, let's say, academic study of a realm of something, there's certain people will classify what we say about that and all. And so in education, or in educational psychology, there are 3, at least, taxonomies that we're going to talk about. The first 2 are, it's all related to education. The one we're going to spend more time on is the one that deals with the cognitive realm or the cognitive domain. That's going to be last. Okay? But cognition has to do with what? Our mind. So in education, lots we're thinking about is the mind, right? Okay. But is there more involved in learning and teaching than our mind? There is, right? What else is involved? For you. You're here in this room. What's involved with you learning? Just what I'm saying and what you're hearing and processing in your mind? No. What else?
Our surroundings.
Your surroundings. I'm sorry?
If there's a distraction, that'll help it.
Yes. Okay, that's involved. That's not necessary. Let's say what else about you is involved in this, not the surroundings. I mean, the surroundings is very important. That's another issue, though. Jacob, what do you think?
Us writing and typing what you're you're saying.
Okay, writing and typing. So what part of you is that?
Right.
Not necessarily. I mean, your brain is involved, but what does it take to write? What did it take for you to learn how to write? Motor skills. Okay? So there's motor skills involved in education, even typing, right? Get them in the right order, and all that. Writing. Okay? So the first, let's just pause there or come back to our lesson. The first taxonomy that we're going to talk about will be the taxonomy of motor skills. Okay? And that's called the psychomotor domain. When I say domain, I think they're using, how many have had calculus? Is domain a calculus word? Like a range?
Yeah, they use it in there.
Yeah, So a domain is a range. How many you think of domain? You think of a kingdom. Okay, that's King so-and-so's domain. That's his area. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of the word domain. And we're talking about the motor skills domain, the motor skills facet of human nature, whatever, the psychomotor domain. Okay, so psychomotor domain has 3 areas. We develop in our motor skills through 3 stages, 3 periods, 3 levels, whatever you might call it. Okay? Now, it's easiest for us, because we all had to do it, to think about writing when we imagine these levels. Okay? When you learned how to write, the first thing you did is imitate what someone else did. Right? Someone else put dots on a page, and you imitated. You traced it. Okay? So whether we're talking about PE class, first time you kicked a ball, you imitated somebody else doing it. They said, do it this way. And you said, how, imitation. That's the first level. The second level is manipulation. And the idea of that is that you know how to do it by yourself, but you still kind of have to think about it. Remember when you were writing? Okay? Or even when you were typing? Typing, they said, do, K, K, K. Okay? Then, so that was more like probably imitation. Tracing something, imitation. Then manipulation is, you know how to do it and you can do it by yourself, but it's not automatic. You have to think about it. So when you were in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, pretty soon the teacher didn't put the dots on the lines and you had to do it yourself. Okay? But you didn't just do it. You had to think about it. What does a G look like? And imagining what you're tracing, but you're not. You're doing it on your own. Okay? So that's manipulation. And then the last level is precision. And precision is when the individual exhibits the skill effortlessly and automatically. Okay? So imitation is modeling, skill development, imitating. I think that's kind of easy enough to understand. Manipulation is that's a technical word, but the idea is that you can do it on your own, but you have to think about it. You can perform it independently. That's on your own. And then precision is when you can do it effortlessly and automatically. So some of you are listening to me, you're looking at me, and your fingers are going crazy on your keyboard, and pretty much you're at about 97% accurate with your words. Effortless, automatic, right? Some of you might be 100% accurate because you're not speeding through, depending on how many words you're... It might not be accurate because you're all, beside typing, you're trying to decide what words that he says am I going to put into my computer. Okay? Same with writing. You don't think about writing a sentence out. You think about the words, not about the actual writing. Precision. So there's 3 levels of development in the psychomotor domain. So part of learning is that you have to have motor skills, or part of the teaching learning environment is motor skills, right? We already know about the mind. What else is involved? There's another area involved with you. This one is closer to our mind, so you might not separate it in your thinking. But once we discover it, you'll say, oh yeah, I can see the difference. Dave, what do you think?
Maybe your memory, like based on prior education.
Okay, so let's say memory is very, very specific in the realm of our mind. Okay, so that actually is a level, actually, of the cognitive domain. Okay, so what I'm saying is he's wrong, but he articulated the other one so clearly, maybe you'll think, okay, so not memory, what else is involved? Anybody? Well, I would say that almost everybody is involved in doing this, and actually everybody's involved in it. What do you think, Jacob?
More of like the contemplation mode where you're trying to digest and understand.
Okay.
Actively trying to understand.
You're close, but understanding comes right after memory. Okay, so that's still in the mind part. What do you think? Attention. Okay, attention is going to be in this other realm of how you listen, how you receive something that's called the affective. We would say affective. A-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E. The affective domain. Our affections. And as I give the levels of them, it'll make sense to you. Okay? So I had all of your attention. You were all listening to what I had to say. You were all receiving it. That's the first level. The first level in the affective domain is that the individual receives the information. Listens to some message or point. Receives it. Now, and this is separate from our mind. Many of you, many times, you've listened to something, you've received it, and you had no idea. You couldn't remember it, you didn't understand it, or anything like that, but you were listening, right? Okay. So see how that's separate from mind necessarily? It's kind of our attitude. Our attitude is connected to it. Receives it, listens to it. How many of you have been talking and people were not receiving it? Okay. So we might even say, but there's, I mean, if the idea is not in existence, there's not really a name for that. It's just non-existent. Okay, you're teaching and they're off there doing something else, not paying attention at all. They're not receiving it at all. They're not listening at all. So that's pre-affective affective domain. So receiving. So receiving is the name. Then responding. Responding is the next one. I think it should be clear to you that since I'm giving these particular names, these would be the things you want to remember for a test. Right? Imitation, manipulation, precision. Remember those? Hopefully. We just talked about them 3 minutes ago. Now, receiving. Listens to some point, message or point. Responding is the idea of making a decision or makes a choice about the issue. Let's put it this way. Everything that I say in here, you sit there. If, first of all, you listen to it. If you're listening and you're respectful, then you respond to it. Without saying a word to me, you're responding to it. You're saying, I believe that. You're saying, really? I don't know if I believe that. Right? We're always evaluating, and we might, actual evaluation technical evaluation takes a lot more. But in this realm, we listen to it. Some people listen and they're not some people receive something and they're not responding to it, right? There are times when you listen and you're like, I don't care. I don't care one way or the other. Hopefully you're not like that in here. But so we receive something and then we respond to it saying yes or no, I believe, I don't believe, something like that. Then, valuing is the next level. So if someone has taken an idea, they've heard it, they respond to it, and let's just use the idea of a belief, non-belief. Value is something is when you exhibit a behavior that shows commitment to it. Okay, so can you believe something is true and not be that committed to it? Okay, right? So that would be another level of receiving, our emotional or volitional in the affective realm domain. So receiving, responding, valuing, then organization. Okay, so somebody receives it, they hear it. They respond and they say, when they hear it, they say, well, I think that's true. They've responded to it. Then they say, that's true enough for me to act on it. Do people ever act on things and not really know why? Okay, now, or the reason why is because I heard somebody else say that I ought to. Okay, we get to that point sometimes. Sometimes we just do things and we say, yeah, we believe someone else, it makes sense, and so we change our actions, we value it, but if somebody said, why are you doing that? Our only explanation would be, I believe what somebody else said about it, and so I'm doing it. But when we come to another level called organization, then we can defend those values ourselves. Somebody says, why do you do that? Or why is that? Well, you've heard it, you've received it, you've responded to it, you value it, and you can organize a defense of it. You can give an explanation for it. Is that? And then the last one is characterization. So, and characterization, the phrase that we would use to describe that is when the person allows the values to drive their behavior. Okay, so when I'm saying someone values something, sometimes we value something, we believe it, we value it, so we do it sometimes, and then other times we don't do it, right? We learn more about it, or we accept more of it, we can organize, we can defend those values. Sometimes we can defend something, give an explanation for it, but it's not really in us, it's not us. Okay, so characterization is when this belief, whatever it is, and some of our beliefs are not, it's easy for us as people that hear preaching and all that to understand this realm. Okay, but there's lots and lots of thoughts and ideas that are not really what we would call spiritual. Okay, if we just take the idea of 2 + 2 = 4, okay, you heard it, you agreed with it, you value it, so because you use that methodology when you need to do, you can explain it. If I have these 2 things and these 2 things, I put them together, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 things. And it characterizes you, okay? You always do that. Okay? You live according to the 2 + 2 = 4 principle. Okay? That's like magnifying that to a principle. But in a certain sense, we do live by that. We live that mathematical principle. It's part of our character. It's not something that we think of preaching sermons about. But in a academic sense, you're driven. That truth is just part of the way that you live and work and act.